the principles of operation, maintenance, and troubleshooting of a power, trim, and tilt system. Most Evinrude & Johnson outboards are equipped with a power, trim, and tilt system. This system is used to adjust the vertical angle of the outboard. The power trim adjusts the outboard's angle for different water conditions, improving the boat's acceleration, speed, and ride quality. The power tilt raises and lowers the outboard for trailering, mooring, beaching, launching, and servicing. Hydraulically operated trim and tilt rams raise and lower the angle of the outboard. The remote trim and tilt switch controls the electric motor that drives the hydraulic pump. The power trim and tilt unit is located between and attached to the stern brackets. It consists of a pump manifold assembly containing all valving, a cylinder body containing 2 trim cylinders, a tilt cylinder, and a fluid reservoir. The single tilt cylinder also serves as a shock absorber if the outboard strikes a submerged object. This safety feature is an important function of the power trim and tilt system. By absorbing much of the energy upon impact, the tilt cylinder helps prevent the outboard from breaking off the transom or flipping over into the boat. Both power trim and power tilt are operated by pushing the trim and tilt switch in the desired bow direction, either bow up or bow down. Most large outboards will move until the trim and tilt switch is released, or the outboard reaches the limits of the trim and tilt range. On current large model outboards, the trim range runs from 0 to 21 degrees. In the trim range, the 2 short trim cylinders contact the swivel bracket. The tilt range runs from 22 to 75 degrees. Only the large center tilt cylinder supports the outboard in the tilt range. Internal pressure release valves prevent the unit from moving the outboard into the tilt range while it is under power. When the trim and tilt switch is pushed in the upward direction, the electric motor drives the hydraulic pump, forcing fluid into the trim and tilt cylinders. The fluid forces the pistons outward, moving the outboard upward through the trim and tilt ranges. Trim and tilt relays, located on the engine, control current flow from the battery to the electric motor. When you push the trim and tilt switch in the downward direction, the relays reverse the direction of current flow to the electric motor. This reverses the direction of fluid flow, causing the outboard to move downward. To ensure proper operation of the trim and tilt and its built-in impact protection system, the fluid must be at the correct level. To access the fluid reservoir, tilt the outboard all the way up. Engage the tilt support lever. Lower the outboard until the tilt support lever is resting solidly on the stern brackets. Remove the filler cap and check the fluid level. If the fluid level is low, add Evinrude Johnson power trim and tilt and power steering fluid. With the unit at full tilt, add fluid until the fluid level is even with the bottom of the fill cap hole. Replace the filler cap. To return the outboard to its original position, tilt it all the way up. Disengage the tilt support. Lower the outboard. Purge any air in the system by cycling the unit up and down for at least 5 complete cycles. Check the fluid level again and add more fluid if necessary. If the outboard contacts the boat's motor well while tilting, adjust the tilt limiter cam to limit the maximum tilt-up travel. To reduce the amount of tilt up, place the outboard in its normal operating position. Rotate the tilt limiter cam by pulling the tab forward and up. Check your adjustment by tilting the outboard all the way up. Readjust the tilt limiter cam if necessary. Be aware that if the gear case hits an object at high speed, adjusting the tilt limiter cam will not prevent the outboard from tilting fully and contacting the motor well. If this happens, it could damage the outboard and boat, and injure boat occupants. If the full bow-down trim angle requires adjustment, Move the trim limiter rod by removing the clip on one end of the rod. Reposition the rod and reinstall the clip. The direction that you move the trim limiter rod will determine if the full bow-down position is increased or decreased. The trim gauge indicates the trim angle of the outboard. A trim sending unit attached to the stern bracket varies the electrical resistance to the trim gauge as the outboard moves up or down. The trim indicator needle can be adjusted by pivoting the trim sending unit located on the stern bracket. If adjustment is necessary, raise the outboard and engage the tilt support lever. Lower the outboard. Move the angle adjustment rod to hole number 3. Adjust the sending unit by loosening the screws and pivoting the unit up or down. Do not remove the screws. They should remain snug against the sending unit. Disengage the tilt support lever and lower the outboard against the angle adjustment rod. Observe the trim gauge. If the needle does not show center position, raise the outboard. Adjust the sending unit by pivoting it up or down. Then lower the outboard against the angle adjustment rod to verify the adjustment. Repeat this process until the needle is at the center position. Then, tighten the 2 sending unit screws. Return the angle adjustment rod to its original position. Most power trim and tilt systems are equipped with a manual release valve to raise or lower the outboard manually. To reposition an outboard, slowly turn the manual release valve screw counterclockwise about 3½ turns until it lightly contacts its retaining ring. Remember to keep everyone clear of a tilted engine when backing out the manual release valve screw. The outboard could drop suddenly and forcefully. Reposition the outboard. Then tighten the manual release valve screw to hold the outboard in its new position. Tightening the manual release valve screw also reactivates the outboard's shock absorber protection and reverse thrust capability. A trailering bracket is provided to ensure that none of the power trim and tilt hydraulic components are overloaded during trailering. To prepare an outboard for trailering, tilt it all the way up. Move the trailering bracket into position. Then tilt the outboard down until it is resting firmly on the trailering bracket. Instruct your customers to always use the trailering bracket for trailering, not the tilt support lever. For the power trim and tilt system to function, the electrical and hydraulic systems must be working properly. If the electrical system fails, the electric motor cannot drive the hydraulic pump and system. If the hydraulic system fails, the power trim and tilt unit may not be able to change the engine angle or maintain it while under load. Always refer to the service manual for complete service procedures related to the electrical and hydraulic systems. When troubleshooting, you will need the following equipment: a volt-ohm meter for testing the electrical circuits, a DC ammeter capable of reading up to 100 amps for analyzing current requirements for the electric motor and hydraulic unit, a gauge and collar with adapters for checking hydraulic system pressure, and retaining ring pliers for removing the manual release valve retaining ring. A list of additional special tools for complete servicing can be found in the service manual. If the power trim and tilt unit is not working, first determine if the problem is electrical or hydraulic. Check the electrical system by activating the trim and tilt switch and listening for the operation of the electric motor. If you cannot hear the electric motor and the boat is equipped with a battery switch, make sure the switch is turned on. Examine the battery. Make sure it's fully charged and the battery connections are clean and secure. Check both power trim and tilt switches for correct operation. Listen for the activation of the relays. Don't overlook the electrical connections. A loose or corroded wire may cause the entire system to malfunction. Check the tilt limiter switch for correct operation. If you can hear the electric motor operating, then the problem is most likely in the hydraulic system. Remember, for the hydraulic system to operate properly, the reservoir must be full of fluid, and the manual release valve must be fully closed. When servicing the power trim and tilt system, never interchange components between units. Some internal components may appear similar to those in other units, but they may have different operating pressures and characteristics. Interchanging these components may have an adverse effect on the unit's operation or impact protection.